Imagine this: a ruthless millionaire, face twisted in cold fury, grabs his loyal dog by the scruff and hurls it screaming into a raging, ice-cold river, the water swallowing it whole as it thrashes desperately just yards from shore. And in that heart-stopping moment, you can't look away, because what kind of monster does that to a creature that's loved him unconditionally for years? This isn't some movie scene, it's real cruelty unfolding on a bitter winter day. And it all starts with Victor Langford, a self-made billionaire who clawed his way to the top of the real estate world, building skyscrapers that touched the clouds while his heart stayed buried in the dirt, cold and unfeeling, the kind of man who steps over homeless people on his way to board private jets, who treats employees like disposable trash, firing them on whims because they dared to breathe wrong in his presence. And his loyal dog, Max, a big golden retriever with soulful brown eyes and a tail that wagged like a metronome of pure joy every time Victor walked through the door, had been by his side through it all, sleeping at his feet during late-night board meetings, guarding the mansion when Victor partied with celebrities, licking away the rare tears Victor shed after a tough deal fell through, because Max didn't care about the millions or the mansions. He just loved Victor with every beat of his devoted heart, innocent and unwavering, the one pure thing in Victor's rotten world. But one frigid morning, everything shattered when Victor woke up hungover from another wild night, his latest girlfriend long gone after he screamed at her over nothing, and there was Max, innocently nudging his hand for a pat, but Victor, in his rage, saw only annoyance, a fluffy burden shedding hair on his Italian rugs, so he snapped, yanking Max's collar with brutal force, dragging the confused dog toward the back door as Max whimpered, not understanding the shift, his tail tucking low. Because loyalty blinded him to the danger brewing. Victor stormed down to the icy riverbank behind his sprawling estate, the wind howling like a warning, water churning black and frozen with jagged ice chunks bobbing like teeth ready to bite, and without a second thought, he swung Max over the edge, the dog's paws scrabbling uselessly on air, a final betrayed yelp echoing as he plunged into the freezing torrent, the current immediately seizing him, pulling him under then spitting him back up, his golden fur matting dark with icy water as he paddled frantically, muscles burning, breath coming in panicked gasps, eyes locked on Victor who just turned away, lighting a cigar and muttering about getting a new pet that wouldn't shed. Hidden in the shadows of the mansion's garden, a tiny puppy named Scout, Max's littlest pup from a recent litter, barely 8 weeks old with floppy ears and wide, terrified eyes, watched the whole nightmare unfold, her tiny heart pounding like a drum because Max had been her protector, her world, nuzzling her to sleep every night, and now he was out there drowning while the man she thought was family walked away laughing. Scout bolted from her hiding spot, her stubby legs pumping as fast as they could through the snow, barking shrilly, a desperate cry slicing the air, but Victor didn't even glance back, slamming the gate shut behind him, leaving her alone with the horror. Frantic, Scout darted into the nearby town, her barks piercing the quiet streets, weaving between legs of indifferent pedestrians bundled against the cold, pleading with her big eyes and tiny whines, but people just shoved her away. One lady shrieked and swung her purse, a shopkeeper yelled a scat, mutt, and chased her with a broom. Cars honked as she dashed across traffic, her paws raw and bleeding from the ice-slick pavement, confusion turning to despair because no one stopped, no one cared. The world blurring past in a haze of rejection while her brother's life hung by a thread in that merciless river. She ran harder, lungs burning, dodging a group of kids who laughed and threw snowballs, slipping on a patch of black ice that sent her tumbling into a ditch, but she scrambled up, driven by that unbreakable puppy instinct, her barks growing hoarse as she pushed toward the river's edge again, refusing to quit even as exhaustion clawed at her. That's when she spotted him, old man Elias Grant, a weathered fisherman in patched overalls and a wool cap, sitting on a rickety stool by the water's edge, his line cast into the grey current, not a rich guy or a hero from the headlines, just a simple soul who'd lost his wife to illness years ago and found solace in the quiet rhythm of fishing, mending his own nets, sharing his catch with neighbors who could barely afford groceries. The kind of humble heart that sees pain in silence and acts without fanfare. Scout skidded to a halt in front of him, her tiny body shaking from cold and fear, locking eyes with Elias and unleashing a barrage of urgent barks, pouring at his boot, then turning to dash a few steps toward the river before looking back, repeating the plea because she knew this was her last shot, her brother's life depending on this stranger's kindness. Elias frowned at first, setting down his pole, muttering, "What's got you in such a state, little one?" But something in her desperate gaze tugged at him, an unspoken story screaming through those puppy eyes, so he stood, grabbing his coat, and followed her without question, his boots crunching over frost as Scout led him along the bank, her barks guiding like a beacon straight to where Max still fought the river's grip, weaker now, head barely above water, legs faltering against the numbing cold that seeped into his bones. Elias's eyes widened in horror. "Oh Lord, no!" And he didn't hesitate, heart overriding the danger of the freezing depths and hidden currents that had claimed stronger men, kicking off his boots and wading in, the icy shock hitting him like 1,000 needles as he pushed deeper, arms outstretched toward Max who was drifting farther, whimpering faintly, vision blurring from exhaustion. The water rose to Elias's chest, stealing his breath, numbing his limbs, but he pressed on, grabbing a low-hanging branch to pull himself closer, his fingers numbly snagging Max's collar just as a wave slammed them both, the dog's weight dragging him under for a terrifying second before Elias surfaced gasping, hauling with every ounce of strength, muscles screaming, a sharp rock slicing his leg open underwater, blood clouding the frigid flow. But he wouldn't let go, yelling encouragement to Max as he fought the current inch by brutal inch back to shore. Finally, with a guttural roar, Elias dragged Max onto the bank, collapsing beside him in the snow, both of them shuddering violently, Elias's leg pouring blood, vision spotting black from hypothermia and blood loss, his body giving out after the superhuman effort while Scout licked at their faces frantically, whining for help that wouldn't come on its own. Max, barely alive, shook off the worst of the water and nudged Elias weakly, gratitude shining in his eyes despite the pain, but Elias lay there fading, breath shallow, so Max staggered to his feet, loyalty igniting like fire, and together with Scout, they sprang into action, the big dog limping but determined, the puppy yipping at his side as they raced back toward the town, barking in unison. A symphony of urgency that drew stares this time because two dogs acting in sync was impossible to ignore. They cornered a jogger first, nipping at his heels until he stopped, confused, then led him straight back to Elias, who was barely conscious now, skin blue-tinged, and the man finally got it, fumbling for his phone to call 911, shouting into it about the hero Fisherman bleeding out by the river while Max stood guard, pressing his wet nose to Elias's hand, Scout curling against his side for warmth. Sirens wailed soon after, paramedics rushing Elias to the hospital where doctors fought to save him, warming his body, stitching the deep gash that nearly hit an artery, pumping fluids to counter the shock, but he pulled through, waking days later to find Max and Scout right there, the trio inseparable, their bond forged in ice and fire. Word of the rescue spread like wildfire through the town, locals piecing together the horror from witnesses who'd seen Victor's casual cruelty, security footage from his estate leaking online showing the throw in crystal clarity, social media exploding with outrage, hashtags like #JusticeForMax trending nationwide as animal lovers and news outlets piled on, pressuring authorities until Victor Langford faced the music, animal cruelty charges, fines that dented even his billions, his reputation shredded, sponsors fleeing, deals collapsing, forcing him to sell off properties in disgrace, slinking away a broken man while true justice warmed hearts everywhere. Weeks later, in the soft glow of a hospital room turned forever home, Elias sat up in bed, bandaged but beaming, Max's head heavy on his lap, Scout tumbling playfully at his feet, and as tears streamed down the old fisherman's cheeks, Max licked them away gently, Scout yipping her joy, the reunion sealing a circle of loyalty that no river could break, proving that the purest heroes wear fur and the greatest fortunes can't buy a heart like theirs. Isn't it wild how loyalty like that outshines any millionaire's gold? Drop a comment below. What do you think about monsters like Victor, and do you truly believe animals feel loyalty deeper than most humans? If this story of raw kindness hit you hard, share it right now with someone who loves animals or needs a reminder that good always finds a way. Let's spread this light together.